Well, we'll get started. Thank you guys for being here. As you know, this is our academic advising workshop, and so the thought behind having this workshop for you guys was to make sure that all of you guys know exactly what academic advising is, what you can expect from the process, what's expected from you as students from the process, and maybe some things that your academic advisor can do for you, can work with you on that you weren't aware of. The academic advising relationship can be really, really beneficial if you know what's expected and what you can expect, and if you take advantage of that process. And so we thought this would be a good topic to cover. And then also, I have some information that we'll go over that we'll talk about today, but then if you guys have questions about either what that process looks like or if you've had problems with that process, we'll talk about those things too. And then if you have specific advising questions that maybe you've tried to get answered and have had trouble with before, we'll go over some of that too. We'll have time and space for that. So we'll get started. There's a sign-in sheet in the back there. So if you guys want donuts as I'm going, just feel free to get up and get them because we have plenty. So, and I have to thank Siobhan for putting together the presentation because I had her do that for me because I've been a little busy. So she put this together for us today. So, okay, so we're just going to start out with the basics of academic advising and what you need to know about that process. And so, the first thing, I think you guys probably all have at least a concept of what academic advising is. You guys are all, I think at least, is anybody in here a freshman? I don't think we have any freshmen in here. Okay, so you guys have at least a year or two under your belt. So you guys have had some exposure to academic advising. So some of these things you may know and some you may not, but Missouri Southern actually has a very defined academic advising process. One of the things that everybody in our office has done is what they call the Master Advisor Training here that they offer onto MSSU personnel. And this whole notebook is what we covered to learn about advising and what it should be for our students. And so this is actually from this is from our information that we get trained on. This is also in the catalog as well for students to see because Missouri Southern has a mission and a vision for what advising should be for its students. And so from that, this is just a definition of what academic advising is. And it's kind of long and wordy, but basically it says academic advising is a collaborative educational process whereby students and their advisors are partners in meeting the essential learning outcomes, facilitating student academic success, and outlining the steps for achievement of the student's personal, academic, and career goals. So that is what Missouri Southern says. This is what we want the academic advising process to be for our students. Now, as I mentioned, those of us in our office have gone through this Master Advisor training, and a lot of people on campus have. However, it is not a required training, so faculty who are advising students don't necessarily have to take this course. I think a lot of them do, but and I think that's a little bit of a weakness here is that not everybody takes that. So you may have found that in your experience with academic advisors, some may follow this model and some may not. And we'll talk about later if you've had terrible experiences with your advisors, what do you do and how to correct that? Because I'd love to say that every person on this campus has been through this training and really wants to do a good job of academic advising. But we hear stories about academic advisors, and we know that's not always the case. So we'll talk about that more a little bit later and what you can do as students. So that's our official definition of academic advising. But what does that really mean? Because it's long and wordy and flowery. So we'll talk about a few important things I think from that you guys should know. And the first being that academic advising is a partnership. It's not just you going in and sitting down with your advisor and then them telling you everything that you need to know or doing everything for you. There are expectations on both sides of the table. So you have expectations as a student for what you will do in the academic advising process, and your advisor, there are certainly expectations of him or her as well. And that's, again, something we'll cover in a minute, what exactly is expected of you and what can you expect of your advisor. So just know that there's, it's like any relationship, there's give and take. Both people have to be communicating and working in that relationship. Advising is a long-term relationship, so, and some of you may have had an experience where you changed majors and therefore switched advisors, or maybe some of you have had a bad experience with an advisor and were asked to be reassigned. And so sometimes you may find that you're switching from one advisor to the other, but typically you're going to have somebody that you are working with for a fairly significant period of time. If you spend all 4 years here and you never change your major, you may work with the same person the entire 4 years. Less a little bit different for you since you transferred in. You probably had someone there, now you have somebody here. So it is a long-term relationship, but you may work with several different people along the way. But just know that you need to be thinking of it in that way. And you want to make sure that as much as you have the power to do, your interactions with your advisor are positive, because you will be going back to speak to that person again. This is the person that's helping you kind of define where you're going and how you're going to get there. So from your side, make things as positive as possible to make sure that relationship is a good one. Okay, and we've really mentioned this already, but both student and advisor have responsibilities in that advising relationship. And we'll, again, talk about those later. Okay, so we've talked about how we define academic advising, but we'll talk also about the purpose, because there are some very specific things that the academic advising process is supposed to do for you. Okay, first being that the goal of academic advising is to enable you guys to make effective decisions regarding your degree and your career goals. So this is to be a relationship where, if you don't know exactly what direction you're headed in, or maybe you know what direction you're headed in, but you don't really know how to get there, this is the relationship that's supposed to help you. Talking with your advisor is going to help you hopefully, to make those decisions and to figure out which direction you're going. If you don't know what career you're interested in, I think we don't have any undeclared majors here, but maybe if you guys were undeclared at first, you might have worked with the ACTS office, and one thing they do with their undeclared majors is help them figure out that career path and look at career exploration. We try and do that with a lot of our undeclared students as well. Okay, develop a plan and select courses for achieving goals and making progress each semester. So, you guys know that you have to go see your advisor when you want to register. And we hear a lot of different things about that interaction from our students. A lot of our students will say, especially for those that are doing priority enrollment with us, since they have to go see their advisors first, a lot of times we hear, my advisor signed my form and it was blank. Or I had my form filled out, but he didn't even look at it, he just signed it. And I hate when we hear that, because it's means there's something lacking in that interaction. But ideally, your advisor should be helping you to develop that plan and select the courses that you're going to take so that you stay on track with your goals, so that you graduate when you plan to graduate, when you want to graduate, and that every semester you're making progress towards that. If you guys are in a situation where your advisor is not doing that for you, then that's a situation where hopefully we can help you guys find some ways to improve that or to make a change in that. Because that's really a very, very big piece, as I'm sure you guys know, of the academic advising process. Have any of you guys ever experienced an advisor that just signed and didn't give any feedback?
Well, mine usually does that, but the very first time I went in here, I had a 4-year plan, and she okayed the whole 4-year plan. So
okay.
I stay on that schedule, and
Sure.
she's okay with that.
Okay, so that's a little bit different. She has looked at that for you. You guys have planned that out, and as long as you're staying on that. Yeah. Okay.
I have a unique situation in my department because there are 4 full-time staff members, and that's it. And we
Okay.
being a painting emphasis as well as sculpture, there are neither of those full-time staff members. So I'll be talking with somebody who either lacks the experience in that field or the content knowledge. And let's see, there's 105 art majors, so what's that divided by 4? That's like 26 students per full-time staff member.
Sure.
So they don't have the time, and they try to make that time, but you have people that feel neglected, and then there's gaps in the system in the art department that kind of makes you feel like you're just in midair. There's no solid ground really to walk on for a lot of those art majors. So I've seen how that's a huge problem, and if they had maybe 2 more full-time staff members over there, it could completely transform the art department for the benefit of the students.
Sure.
So if I wanted to you know, voice my opinion, who needs to hear that?
Well, I would say, we always try and encourage students to start at the bottom and work your way up when you have a problem. So if there's a person directly that you have an issue with, try communicating that with them, but it doesn't really sound to me from your dilemma that there's anybody who's particularly not doing their job, just that there's not enough people to go around and not enough people in your area to cover everybody. So, I think my advice to you would be to express your concern to the head of the art department and just let them know, that as a student, I feel like there's not enough advisors to give us the individual attention. I can't guarantee that will go anywhere, but if they hear that consistently from students, then they're going to know that that's a concern. And hopefully the department head is receptive to that, takes that into consideration.
I don't know, because they haven't had one for a while, and I think they just hired one.
Okay. And that probably, and you might find that them having both had a department head and now having one, that may be an issue that slowly they're able to resolve. So hopefully, with that, making that change in the department, they'll have a little bit more, and the department head will probably do some advising as well. So that might be a good resource for you too, once that person is here and working, requesting a time to sit down with them and let them know, there's not anybody really exactly in my area, can you give me some direction and make sure I'm headed the right way?
Okay, so, and just meet with her in person then, not really write a letter?
I would try and meet in person. I think that you can, if communication is a little bit more effective that way, and one-on-one time with anybody is usually more beneficial. It's easy by email to not fully understand what's trying to be communicated. So, I would see if you can get a time to go in and meet with that person and see where you go. Good question, no. Good question. Okay, the purpose of also of academic advising is for you guys to all know the general education requirements, so that every student has to do the same general education core classes. And so you all need to know what that is to be able to complete that. And so that's another general purpose of academic advising, for you guys to be aware of what those requirements are. Am I meeting them? Where am I on my progress? And then also, I have general education requirements here. That, of course, is a big piece. But then also, you guys need to know your major requirements too. And that's where your advisor in your major area is really going to be the most help, hopefully, to you guys. Because, like I said, the general education requirements are the same for everybody within that framework. You have some choice, some options of what you take. But they're about the same for everybody. Then when you get into your major, that's going to differ for everybody, depending on, if you guys are all different majors in here, you're all going to do different things. And your major advisor is really going to be your expert on that. If you're an accounting major, your advisor is in accounting, he or she knows the classes you need to take. So hopefully through that relationship, you guys get to know the general ed requirements and then the requirements for your major in addition to that. Using campus resources to assist you guys in your goals. This is, I think, maybe an area where people don't necessarily think of their academic advisor as much as maybe you could or should. But there's a lot of resources on campus. I mean, there's obviously, you guys know about Project Stay because you're all part of that, but there's the ACTS office, and they do a lot of different things. The FYE office, there's tons of resources on campus, but sometimes students don't always know what all of those are or have a problem and they're not sure where to go with it. Your academic advisor hopefully can help you with those things. So there may be a problem that you have that your advisor can't necessarily solve, but they should know the resources on campus well enough to send you in the right direction or get you set up with the person that you need to get set up with. So hopefully that relationship also helps you to understand and know what resources are out there and how they can help you with whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether you're struggling in a class or you want to get involved on campus. They should be able to help you in that area. But you have to make sure and ask that, because I don't think students always think to ask that of their advisor. Okay, enabling students to read and use a degree audit. How many of you guys are familiar with the CAP report? Okay, a couple of you. That is, you'll hear those terms used interchangeably, degree audit and CAPS report, they're the same thing here. And if you haven't seen a CAPS report before, we can look online now on where you go to get one of those. But essentially, if you want to know where you are in progress towards your degree, what you've completed and what you still have to complete to get the degree you want, the degree audit or the CAPS report is what you want to look at. And we do a lot of looking over CAPS with our students, and we can do that with you guys anytime that you want to do that. Your academic advisor and your major should be able to do that with you as well. They can be kind of confusing if you are not familiar with them. Just the format and all the different sections of them. Typically, a CAP report for somebody who's been in school for a couple of years will be easily 12 pages long. So they're long and they can be confusing, but part of this relationship is to teach you guys to use those, to look at those and be able to assess what you've done, what you haven't done. You know, if there's classes that you need to retake, there's requirements outside of just the degree requirements. You have to meet the writing intensive requirement, which is five writing intensive classes, and that shows up on the degree audit if you've done that. You have to have a computer literacy course, which is met by a bunch of different courses. And those things don't always get talked about very much, but they show up on the CAPS report. So it is a great tool to use. I would encourage all of you, for those of you who maybe have never looked at one before, to at least start getting familiar with it. And like I mentioned, we're happy to go over that with you guys anytime. Your advisor and your major hopefully is willing to do that with you guys as well too, because it's a great resource to use once you're familiar with it and know kind of what you're looking for. Okay, and then ultimately, what does everybody who's here want to do? Well, I assume that you all want to graduate and you all want to do it, as quickly as you can or in the time frame that you have decided. And so I think probably the biggest purpose of academic advising is this last one, to help you guys graduate in a timely manner. So you don't get here and have no direction and don't take the classes that you need and end up spending more time here than you need to or want to. So ultimately, this is what we want. We want to help our students to graduate in a timely manner. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you, because the next thing we're going to talk about is what can I expect of my advisor and what's expected of me. So I have just a little video to show you guys that's just kind of get you thinking about that relationship. I'm going to turn that on.
How are you today?
I'm okay, but I don't know why I have to come see you.
Everyone has to see their advisor before you can register for classes. Tomorrow is the first day of classes.
I want to take as many classes as I can, but I cannot take classes that start at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Why not?
I am not a morning person.
I see you need biology. There is a class at 10 in the morning.
I can't take that class. The instructor gave me a bad grade last year. I really like science, but he ruined biology for me. He also wears socks with sandals and that freaks me out.
Okay, someone different teaches biology at 5 in the evening.
I can't take evening classes. I have to be at work at 4.
Okay, let's look at something else. You need a fine arts credit and there is an American literature class 3 days a week at 1 o'clock.
I don't know. I'm really not much of a reader.
Okay, what about a psychology class at 2?
That sounds okay. Is it a hard class? Does the instructor give a lot of homework? I really need to raise my grade point average so I can apply to the teacher education program as soon as possible.
The grade point average for the program has to be 2.75. What is your current grade point?
It is 1.5. Do you think I can get it up to 2.75 this semester?
Have you used the grade point calculator on the university website?
What website?
Let's look at the grade point calculator. What grade do you think you will make in American government this semester?
NA.
You have taken American government 6 times and you have never made above a D. Why do you think this semester will be different?
I bought the textbook.
Okay, let's look at the English classes. There is one that still has openings and it is offered at 10:30 3 days a week.
I need to take Mrs. Wilson for English.
Mrs. Wilson's class does not have any openings.
I need to take Mrs. Wilson for English.
Why?
I have her for freshman English. She knows how to dress.
Mrs. Wilson has no openings.
I have to have Mrs. Wilson for English.
Right. What about algebra?
Math is my best subject.
According to your transcript, you have taken developmental math 3 times and have not passed.
But math is my favorite subject. I might want to be a middle school math teacher.
You have to take college algebra and calculus to be admitted to the math program.
Is calculus harder than algebra?
Well, I do not know what is left. Very few classes still have openings, and you cannot take many of the classes that have openings. So you can register for 4 classes, which will give you 12 credits, and that will make you a full-time student.
I have to have 15 credits to keep my scholarship.
Take your schedule, go home, look at what is being offered, and decide what to take.
Why don't you want to help me with my schedule?
I have another student waiting for me. Come back when you have decided what to take. Not perhaps you can come earlier for advising next time so you can get the classes you want.
I might change my major.
Sounds like a good idea. Goodbye.
A little silly, and a little exaggerated. A little. But I can tell you that those kind of conversations happen. And so I wanted to watch that before we got to the next section where we talk about what can you expect from your advisor and what will they expect of you. Because if you ever go into an advising session and you're as prepared as that girl was, then you probably won't have a very good experience, and hopefully none of you guys ever do that. But I've never worked with an example that was that extreme. But, you know, a lot of times we do when we work with a student who waits until the very end to register for classes and has a work schedule and has to pick up kids from school and has a lot on their plate and can only take classes in a very small window. It can be very, very difficult. And so, anyway, I just wanted to show that. I thought that was kind of funny before we get into this next section. So we're going to talk first about what you can expect of your advisor. And this is a fairly long list, so we'll move through it kind of quickly. But I have, I thought that I brought handout. Let me make copies of this too. Okay. You can email
She
copies
did
of
the
this to you. Yes, I know. I've asked her to do a lot in the last 2 days. If you guys want a copy of this, we will email it to you because it has the list of what to expect and what not to. No big deal. Okay, first of all, and we've covered this a little bit already, understand degree requirements and effectively communicate them. So you can expect your advisor, when you're new and you're learning your way around, to help you learn the degree requirements and for them to help teach you those things. Provide a safe space in which to share your thoughts, aspirations, concerns, and interests. Hopefully you guys have an advisor where you feel like you can go in and you can talk to them about what you want to do, and if there's any concerns that you have about, am I going to be able to get there, or what do I need to do, you can express those things to your advisor. Provide resources and referrals. So we talked about this a little bit when we talked about different campus resources. Sometimes your advisor, you'll come across something that you need that maybe your advisor can't do for you. But they should, hopefully, connect you to the right resources, whether it be somebody on campus or in the community. If there's something that you need, hopefully they can be that person to help you with that. Listen carefully to your questions, concerns, and confusions. I know it can be hard sometimes to get in to see advisors, especially around the time of year when we're talking about enrollment and they have a lot of students to see. So I would encourage you guys, if at any time when you have questions or concerns about your degree or your progress here, that you try and get in and see your advisor as soon as those come to your mind, or contact them by phone or email if it's just a quick question, so that they can address those with you. That way you're not faced with, you have a bunch of big decisions to make. It's enrollment time. You can't get a meeting because they're too busy with everything else. And hopefully you don't run into that a lot anyway. But They should be there to listen to your questions and help you work through those. Okay, maintain confidentiality as possible, which basically means that they're not going to discuss the things that they know about you, the things that you talk about with parents or non-university people, unless they have permission from you, and then that they keep your information secure. So if they're responding or corresponding with somebody on the campus about you, they're using campus email, which is a safe, protected email. Now, I will say that the exception to this is if they think that you're in danger or that you're endangering somebody else. If there's concern for your welfare or if they are afraid that you are going to harm somebody else, then the confidentiality goes out the window. And, they may contact somebody on campus if they think you're not safe. But other than that, advisors are governed by FERPA, which you guys may or may not have heard, but I'm sure you've all heard of HIPAA. FERPA is HIPAA for schools. So we are required to maintain confidentiality with the information we know about you. So you should be able to feel like the conversations that you're having with your advisor are staying in that office, unless you give them permission otherwise. Okay, and we've kind of covered this already, but assist you in making course and major decisions. So, if you aren't sure what classes you need to be taking, if you're thinking about a major or switching a major, they need to be the ones to help you in making that decision. Be accessible for meetings with advisees through office hours, phone, or web access. Have any of you guys ever had problems getting in to see your advisor? Good, that's
I
good.
used to during, enrollment time, but I always just make a point to do it before enrollment time
Yeah.
now.
Which is a good way to go about it. And also, I would encourage you guys, when it's enrollment time and you need to get in and see them, if you need their signature, make that appointment early if you can, because they do fill up and it can be tough around enrollment time. But hopefully they're all keeping consistent office hours, or they're responsive by phone or email, depending on how you prefer to contact them. I will tell you that every once in a while we have a student who comes in who's frustrated with their advisor because they can't get a hold of them. And I always ask them what they've tried. And usually when I have a student who can't get a hold of an advisor, what I hear is, well, I've emailed him twice. And sometimes you'll have an advisor that's really responsive to email and sometimes not. And so I encourage students, if they don't respond by email, call them or go by their office. Try every means that you have before you get to the point where you're just frustrated. They should all have office hours where they're available for you.
Some are the opposite. Mine won't answer her phone or check her messages, but if you email her, she gets right back to you.
Okay. So you never know quite what to expect. Right. Everybody's a little bit different, so you may find yourself in that situation too. So I would say try every method that you have to contact them. Some like email, some like phone, some want you to come by in person.
I've experienced that it's difficult to get responses sometimes, but from a lot of people by certain means.
Yeah, it is, and there's really no, advising is kind of like teaching in that the people who are advising kind of have a lot of freedom to kind of structure it the way they want to. I mean, we have this training and what Missouri Southern says this is what we want advising to look like, but as far as responding to students and what they prefer, they have a lot of leeway really. So, there's no one at Missouri Southern that is enforcing, advisors to, you have to correspond by email or you have to correspond by phone. It's kind of left up to the advisors. So, obviously you've experienced that. So.
I would feel guilty if I had, unreturned voicemails or emails.
Yeah, I hear you, and I think in our office we try and be as responsive as we can to our students and respond either way, any way that they contact us. But I have definitely heard that from students before, that there are some instructors or advisors who absolutely will not communicate in one form or.
She doesn't even check her messages. I mean, she'll have a blinking light, but she never checks her messages.
Yeah, which is I wish I could tell you I understand that.
No, she just said, she goes, I won't check the messages, so don't leave one. Well, okay.
People are quirky, and you never know exactly what, that would drive me crazy, the blinking light.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I can see why that's a frustration, because you would think if we have all these methods of contacting people, some of them will respond to this one way, some won't. it's just kind of one of those
Well,
things. you have
sometimes
to
you're not
feel.
always email accessible, you know, you
Yeah,
wanna call them up
definitely.
and say, hey, I need to do this, this, and this,
Yeah.
and.
And sometimes you need it answered quickly, and you just have a short, fast question that can be answered over the phone, and it's frustrating if you can't get them that way. Yeah, I understand. I know that's a frustration. I wish I could tell you there's a magic answer to make that different. But I think really the best thing you can do is try them every way possible. And then if that's still not working, we'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. What do you do then? Okay, helping you think through your educational goals. So I'll go back to the example of the video we watched. The girl wanted to be in education, which requires a 2.75 GPA, and she has a 1.5. That might consider some thinking through. Is that realistic? So, if you have something that you're thinking about doing, whether it be you're coming in new, you don't know what your major is, or you're thinking about switching, or you have a particular job in mind, your advisor should help you to think through those things. Okay, am I on the right track? Is this realistic for me? Is there a job market for what I want to do? Those types of things, those types of questions.
Is there any major that a 1.5 would be okay for? I'm
No.
thinking that her advice should be either get your grades up or quit school.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 1.5 I don't
You're
recommend.
wasting your money, honey.
Yeah, don't listen to 2.0 to graduate, so she has some work to do. Okay, a few more on here. Okay, protect and secure the integrity of the university's degrees by enforcing university and departmental policies and requirements. So that's real wordy and policy sounding, but basically they have to make sure that when they're signing your graduation paperwork saying, yes, Jennifer has met all the requirements, that she really has met all the requirements, and that they're not letting things slide by, that they're not letting her miss classes that everybody else had to take. So, that their job is to also make sure that you guys are following the policies and the degree requirements that the university has set for graduation. Treat you with respect and as an adult. Everybody here is an adult, and hopefully you guys have not had an experience where you weren't treated with respect or as an adult. I hope that hasn't happened for you guys, but you can't